Jones Sennett, and I'm the president of the Greater Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce. I would like to welcome everyone on behalf of my officers and my board of directors for taking time out of your evening to obviously join us, but obviously to also educate you on the candidates that are going to be running for the 2013 election for trustees. With that this evening, just a few housekeeping issues is to please take a few minutes to make sure that your phones are either on silent or are turned off. So as the candidates are concentrating on answering their questions professionally for you this evening, they're not interrupted. So with that, we are going to go ahead and introduce the candidates, and would appreciate your attention to that. And Lisa Grucki, our secretary for the chamber, who has so graciously coordinated this evening, will go ahead and do our introductions for our trustee candidates this evening.
Okay, we're going to do these just in alphabetical order by their last name, so it's how they're on the bio sheet that you have. Our first candidate coming out is Ben A. Baraska. He is a graduate of Edwin G. Foreman High School. He is a manager with Lions Club International. He has lived in Montgomery for 9 years, and this will be his first elected office if he wins this election.
Hello, everybody.
Our second candidate is Steve R. Youngerman. He has a BS from Ohio State University. He is a construction project manager and sales. He's lived in Montgomery since August of 2007, and he is currently appointed to the Village of Montgomery Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, and he's actually been recently reappointed to that office. He was first appointed in 2009. Our third candidate, Andy Kazmarek, is not with us this evening, so the next one I'm going to be introducing is Denny Lee. He has a BS in business from Aurora College. He's retired but working part-time as a school bus driver for special needs children. He's lived in Montgomery his entire life, and he is currently serving his third term on the Village Board of Trustees. Our fourth candidate coming out is Colleen C. Nedrow. She has she has been educated at Northern Illinois University, Triton Community College, and Waubonsee Community College. She is currently the CEO, owner, and a photographer for Peyton's Photography. She's lived in Montgomery since 2010, and this will also be her first office. Our next candidate is Gregory W. Nelson. He is a graduate of Oswego High School and has taken some college classes along the way. He's currently VP and CRO of Genesis POS. He's lived in Montgomery for over 20 years, and his family has been in this area for over 150 years. He is currently appointed to the Oswego Montgomery Library District. Joshua Salisbury. Joshua is a graduate of West Aurora High School. He also has studied at Waubonsee Community College and Elgin Community College. His current position is he's an information processor with the Kane County Sheriff's Office, and he has lived in Montgomery for his entire life. Our final candidate is Teresa Sperling. She is not here today, but someone is going to be reading a statement for her in just a moment, and so I'm not going to do an introduction of her either. Pam, if you're ready. Where would you like me to? You can use the microphone there. Pam Nagel is going to be reading the statement from Teresa Sperling.
Thank you, Lisa. First, I'd like to express my gratitude for tonight's forum. I sincerely appreciate the effort by everyone involved to put together this event. Unfortunately, I am unable to be with you tonight due to a long-term prior commitment, so I am grateful to have the opportunity to have someone read my statements. My name is Teresa Sperling, and I've chosen to call Montgomery home since 2005. I have experience on the Montgomery Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals, as well as the Orchard Road TIF Steering Committee. I've also volunteered at the MEDC and have served on my Homeowners Association Board of Directors in Seasons Ridge for almost 7 years. Professionally, I've been connected to the housing industry for 20 years as a licensed loan originator, sales manager, compliance point person, and a corporate trainer. Currently, I work in the mortgage industry for one of the country's top producing loan originators. I'm responsible for anticipating problems and finding solutions. I believe these personal strengths would be an asset as a village trustee. On any given day, I can be found walking my dogs or visiting with neighbors throughout the Seasons Ridge area. In fact, that's how most people know me, as the lady always walking her dogs. During my downtime, I enjoy frequent visits to the Montgomery Library campus and taking advantage of our beautiful park areas along the Fox River. My interest in running for trustee is a simple one. I want to ensure that decisions are being made in the best interest of Montgomery residents. I've become concerned at how the majority of trustees are voting on various issues. There doesn't seem to be enough thought given to the long-term consequences for our community. I've left countless meetings disappointed and frustrated. Last year, I began to consider a run for trustee as a way to look out for Montgomery. After all, you can't complain if you aren't willing to get involved. In the fall, I was approached by a group of residents and encouraged by many others to make it official, which brings us to tonight. I'm very interested in keeping our business community strong. This is one of our top issues that needs to be addressed continuously. I'm a firm believer that a strong business community plays a key role in the progress of the village. Local establishments conveniently provide our residents with goods and services. Montgomery companies also provide jobs and a sales tax base. This, in turn, allows the village to provide a high level of service to its residents while keeping taxes low. Therefore, I support the MEDC, the Chamber, and our Community Development Department in their efforts to attract new business as well as the outreach to existing businesses. Based on my professional experience, my approach to decision-making entails looking at the big picture, contemplating the range of consequences, weighing the compromises, and considering the potential results. I want decisions to be made in the best interest of Montgomery. My name is Teresa Sperling, and I ask for your vote for trustee. Thank you.
Okay, the first question is going to,
The opening statement is going to be going to Greg Nelson.
okay.
Well, I get 2 minutes. Hi. I'm Greg Nelson. I recently just ran for King County Board, which I did not get into. I said during that time, and with Chris Lawson and a few other people, that if I didn't get in, I would run for trustee or president. You know, this thing should be on. Okay. Okay. I guess maybe we should put it over here. During that run, I knocked on a lot of doors. And why knocking on a lot of doors? I also opened a lot of doors with a lot of questions from everybody and some of the disappointments that have happened in the village of late and actually over the past 10 years. I've been involved in the village since I came to the village 20 years ago. I started my business in the village. I now have 3 businesses that are worldwide. I've got tons of employees, and I keep on growing my little business. Recently, somebody made the comment that maybe we should run our village like a business. Yeah, I think we should, because if we don't, we're going to go broke. And we keep on doing the spending of, instead of I need, we do it by I want. And I want is not how you run a business. You spend an I need. You can only spend what you have, and we have to stop doing what we're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson, for your comments.
I thought we had 30 seconds after the red.
Hold on just a second.
You can go 30 more seconds.
Go 30 more
it's my
seconds? Okay.
understanding he has
I'm
30
sorry.
seconds on the red card. You
Yeah,
get
well,
an additional 30
this
seconds.
means you're done, right?
I apologize.
Okay.
I'm still in training, so I apologize.
Okay, all right.
So you do have 30 seconds, and
Okay.
I apologize to the
Okay, I gotta
audience.
regain my thoughts here.
The card needs to be raised, and then you can finish up. So
Okay.
sorry about that.
Okay. Now I lost my train of thought. I think what our biggest problem is that we only have so much money to spend, and we keep on dipping into a pool that doesn't have any money in it. We don't have a rainy day fund. We're going out for bonds that we shouldn't be going out for. We got to stop spending the way that we're spending, and fiscal responsibility is number one. So, my name again is Greg Nelson. I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you. And the next opening statement will be Mr. Youngerman.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Youngerman, and I live at 2109 Emma Avenue. My wife, Dawn, and I purchased a home in the village in August of 2007. I am currently active in my subdivision's HOA. I'm coordinator of my subdivision's Neighborhood Watch program. I was appointed to the Village of Montgomery's Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals in 2009, and was recently reappointed to a second 5-year term. I was recently elected by my peers as chairperson of the Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. The residents of Montgomery are going to hear many views and opinions tonight on which direction the village should be headed over the next 4 years. We have a choice to either continue the micromanaging, non-transparent ways supported by a majority of the current village board, or we can choose to take another path. A path in which the department heads have the authority to run their departments and report to a village administrator or manager that is responsible for running the day-to-day activities of the village. An administrator that is responsible for carrying out the policy decisions of the board. I believe trustees should create village policy in an atmosphere that is transparent and includes open, honest dialogue between trustees and village residents. I will work in coordination with the MEDC, the Greater Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce, village staff, and existing business to create a business atmosphere that is conducive to economic growth and puts Montgomery in a position to take advantage of the economic opportunities that come to the village. In addition, I will work aggressively to create economic opportunities within the village. The village relies heavily upon the residential sector as a tax base. We need to create a balance between residential, business, retail, and manufacturing to generate a tax base that is not dependent upon the residential sector. Montgomery faces real problems and needs real solutions. Being a village trustee means voting responsibly in the best interest of the village and representing all residents, not just the ones who helped you get into office.
Thank you, Mr. Youngerman. And the next opening statement will be read by Mr. Lee.
Thank you. I want to thank the Chamber for having this, first of all. They've done that for the last 3-4 elections. I'm a third-term, 12-year trustee. I live now in the old section. I've had 2 houses down there. I've had 1 house that I've owned on the east side of Montgomery. I have 5 children, 4 grandchildren. My wife and I both love Montgomery. Her being the chairperson of the Historic Preservation Commission. I'm a lifetime member of Our Savior Church in Aurora, and I've been their council president for the last 4 years. I helped coordinate Montgomery Fest for the last 14 years, and I've always been active in the community, mostly in the sporting goods industry, and I was a 16-year retired paramedic and fireman for the Montgomery Fire Department. I'm a supporter and current member of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation. I served as first president and have the support of the business community. The village board in my first 10 years set policies and controlled growth. I think in that 10 years, myself and the rest of the trustees are proud of our little village that has now been 18,000 people. The last 2 years has been sporadic judgments, micromanaging decisions of day-to-day things, and this needs to change. We need to go back to common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Ms. Nedrow will provide the next opening statement.
Good evening. My name is Colleen Nedrow, and I've been a resident of Montgomery since August of 2010. My husband Bill and I have been together for the last 20 years and have 4 amazing children. William is 11, our daughter Peyton is 9, and our twin boys, Gavin and Hallis, are 6. We're big Bears fans. Many of tonight's speakers are going to tell you what they plan on bringing to the table if elected, and I think that's great. I, however, am going to start with telling you what I'm not going to bring. I'm not going to bring backdoor politics. No buddy system coalitions where you grease my palm and I do the same for you. The village does not need this continued kind of political mumbo-jumbo. I will not make promises I simply cannot keep. I will not be cowed into a corner by those who feel their length of time in the village will overrule others' views and opinions. I do bring my business savvy. I've run my own photography business since 1997. I bring a fresh perspective to the board, and I am not easily intimidated, and I certainly am not afraid to voice my opinions and concerns. I am here to listen to the community and serve them to the best of my ability, with no hidden agendas. I am a strong, independent individual that believes Montgomery can be greater than it already is. If you truly wish the village to return to reason, then we have to be reasonable about who we elect onto our board. We need honest, trustworthy, forward-thinking individuals, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Nedrow. Our next opening statement will be read by Mr. Salisbury.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, given the weather the last couple of days. My name is Josh Salisbury. I'm a lifelong resident of Montgomery. I did run for trustee 2 years ago, and that was a very interesting experience. So I'm back again to try to encourage you to elect me to the board. Now, my companions over here have talked about Montgomery heading in different directions, and yes, we are. We're heading in very difficult, directions. But the one thing we have to remember is, as trustees, we have to maintain a fiscal responsibility to our residents, so we are not overtaxing them and putting more burden on them. I feel as a trustee that we need to work with our local business owners on a more one-on-one basis to see what they can bring to the table, and so we can ease the burden on some of our residents, and we need to work on some programs that would help our residents out.
Thank you, Mr. Salisbury. Our next opening statement will be read by Mr. Broszka.
I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting tonight's forum and give us the opportunity to introduce ourselves to the village residents, staff, and media. My name is Ben Brzaska. Since 2004, my family has resided in Fairfield Way subdivision. I'm married to Linda, and we have 3 children. Amy, who lives in Indiana, Kevin, who is 19 and attending Western Illinois University, and Haley, who is a senior at Yorkville High School. I've been employed by Lions Clubs International since 1986. In addition, I've worked for Brunswick Corp for 20 years. I guess I'm an overachiever. Before moving to Montgomery, we resided in Carroll Stream, where I was a Cub Scout den leader, coached basketball, baseball, and football for the Park District. After moving to Montgomery, I continued to coach youth sports for the Yorkville Park District. It didn't take me long to begin getting involved in Montgomery and in my neighborhood, where I soon became a subdivision coordinator for Neighborhood Watch. I coordinate the Nighttime Walkers program, and through the program we have exposed the neighborhood sex offender. Our Watch program has won national awards, and we have been able to assist Montgomery Police in creating and promoting Watch programs throughout the village. Because I volunteer and like to be involved in what makes Montgomery a great place to live, my friends and neighbors thought I would make a good candidate for a trustee, and that is why I'm here today. My management role at Lions Clubs International gives me extensive experience in managing multiple departments, which includes all aspects of managing staff and budgets. I have been successful in meeting the needs of the association in today's economy by reducing budgets annually. Since entertaining the thought of candidacy, I have been attending board meetings and committee of the whole meetings. I like the diversity of the issues and topics the board faces constantly. I realize that responsibility that the board faces is much greater than I originally thought, and I applaud those in the current board and previous boards for bringing Montgomery where it is today. It is a great place to raise a family.
Thank you, Mr. Broszka. Now we will go ahead and move into the answering of questions that will be asked of the candidates.
Okay. The first question goes to
Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Nelson. What do you think is the biggest need in Montgomery right now?
I think there's a couple things that we've got that are our biggest need. One, we've got to get the water main situation in Boulder Hill sorted. We've got to set up an accounting system so that we've got the proper funds being applied. If we bring in millions of dollars to repair that over there, and we're expecting those people to pay for that, we can't have a cross flow. Currently, our accounting system is joined at the hips, and when it's joined like that, we don't get a realistic picture of what's going on. Our water department essentially funds everything in the village, and we've got to get that situation rectified. Some of the other things are the special services areas that we've got going on in the village. We've got to get that stuff under control. I just saw some village for muskrat removal, and last year we didn't have any rain. Why are we having to remove muskrats that weren't even there? They're putting in something like $20,000 for muskrat removal in these special service areas. That's ridiculous. Some of these, we just recently bought $10,000 in phones. Why? That's not fiscally responsible. It's your tax dollars. It's my tax dollars. Those are some of the things we've got to get under control. We've got to bring it back to I need and not I want. We've got to get our staff on board on it. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Youngerman?
I'm number 2.
You are number
Okay.
2.
Apparently, I didn't realize that. There are two, the biggest need in Montgomery right now, there are actually two. The first one is economic development. People talk about keeping their tax rates low, and you've got to understand the portion of your tax bill that actually goes to the village is very, very small. We need economic development to create sales revenue so we can begin to fund additional police officers, so we can begin to fund Public Works Department, so we can begin to fund the Public Works resurfacing of streets and that kind of thing. Right now, the west side is relatively new. All of the streets and stuff have not had to be resurfaced yet. At some point, we're going to have to fund that. We need to create sales tax revenue to do that. The other thing that I think is important in Montgomery right now is open, honest dialogue. We don't have that right now on the village board. Everything seems to be like a backhand, behind the scenes. We've already made up our mind. We're not going to listen to the village residents' opinions. We've already made up our mind. We've already decided upon our vote before we ever take a vote. So I believe that those are the two biggest needs that we have right now in Montgomery.
Thank you, Mr. Youngerman. Mr. Lee?
I think the biggest thing we need right now is since we lost our administrator, things have not run real smoothly. So I think that's the first thing we really need to do is hire a strong administrator who pushes for economic development and is proactive. I think the business community right now is kind of delusional about the way things are going, and I think we need to step up and maintain day-to-day accountability, and having trustees making decisions on stuff is not really working. The staff doesn't know who makes what decisions and when, and I think the administrator, having a strong administrator is something we have to do right away. The only other thing would be a sales tax referendum for our CIP, and that we'd bring to the people. So those two are neck and neck on what we really need first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Baroshka?
I also believe that the economic development is very important in Montgomery. Like Steve said, it brings in tax dollars that'll pay for roads and the surfacing and such. In addition, I think the board needs to better communicate with the residents so the residents understand what the board is doing. As a resident of Montgomery for the last 9 years, well, I'd say 8 years, I have not known what the board's even doing because I haven't held an interest in it. For the last year, I've held an interest in it, and I'm pretty surprised at all that the board has to decide. I believe that we should have a village administrator to oversee all the departments within the village. And I believe those department heads should be made to take ownership in their responsibilities. That's about all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Broszka. Mr. Salisbury?
Well, the biggest problem facing our village right now is, again, the fiscal responsibility. As far as the SSAs go, we really need to get those under control because a lot of residents I've talked to, they don't even know they're being taxed for an SSA. They're not even sure what an SSA even is. So we need to get that needs to be carefully looked at, and we need to reevaluate how those SSAs work. As far as the funding, as Mr. Lee has said with our capital improvement projects, let's analyze our budget. Where can we make responsible, easy, minor cuts to the budget to fund those CIP projects without overtaxing our residents? And as far as the village administrator, yes, we do need a village administrator to make decisions on day-to-day, but ultimately the trustee is accountable. So as far as the administrator goes, yes, get somebody in for day-to-day operations, but they have to report to that trustee, and the trustee should take more responsibility over the department heads to see that decisions are being carried out. Because ultimately the people are the ones that elect the trustees, so the trustees are ultimately responsible, not the village administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Salisbury. Ms. Nedrow?
Am I allowed to say what they said? All right. I do feel that our spending is out of control. We have been spending way too much money on things that are unnecessary. I don't feel a lot of accountability has been taken for some of that aspect. Business is a big thing. It's not only to bring the business in, but it's keeping them here. If we bring the businesses in, why are they not staying? People are leaving, and I don't understand that. We need to make it more enticing for them to want to stay and to want to build that for the village of Montgomery. We want people to come. Where are they going to go? They're going to Oswego. Well, what's wrong with Montgomery? I tell people, I live in Montgomery, and they look at me and they go, where? So I think it's important to make us stand out in that aspect in the business world. As for a village administrator, I think it's a glorified secretary, and I do not feel we need it. If we are elected as trustees, it is our job to take care of the city. It is not the secretary's job or the village administrator's job. I feel that it's an extra expense that is not necessary for us to incorporate into our world.
Thank you, Ms. Nedrow.
Some of you have already answered the second question. Do you favor the hiring of a professional village manager to help run the day-to-day operations of the village? And we're starting with...
Mr. Nelson?
No, the
Oh,
second.
I'm sorry, we got to go backwards. You know, I'm in training, right?
Yeah. You add one, so go to 2.
Number 2.
Number 2, I am sorry. The learning curve,
Aren't you
yes.
glad I'm here?
No, you're keeping me in line, so that's
got you.
great.
I
Okay.
got your back.
Mr. Youngerman?
I'm first now?
Yes.
How did that happen? You drew the 2.
We're in training, and I'm to go to the second person now. So you are up, sir.
Go for it.
I
my
have,
friend.
if I support the hiring of a village administrator or manager to run the daily activities of the village,
Can you repeat the question, please, Lisa?
Do you favor the hiring of a professional village manager to help run the day-to-day operations of the village?
absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. And let me use my rest of my 1 minute and 50 seconds. Trustees are they're elected to dictate policy. They are not elected to micromanage the day-to-day activities of the village. It is ludicrous to think that we're going to hearken back to a day when we have a village of 5,000 people and each trustee is going to oversee a department. It breeds the possibility of corruption and favoritism, and it has no place in the village. I want to go back. As far as the SSAs, Josh and Greg, You guys better check your definitions of SSAs. The SSA funds, they're essentially HOA fees that the village takes care of, and they're charged to the taxes of each. It's my turn to speak. There's a subdivision on the west side that has a service assessment, which is essentially like a little mortgage for economic, for the developer. He didn't want to purchase the infrastructure, so that's an SA. There's a difference between an SA and an SSA, and I think you have them wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Youngerman. Mr. Lee.
Well, like I said, I think we need a strong administrator. You're micromanaging. I, for one, do not know the internal workings of a police department, say. I know we have some policemen in the audience, and I think that is one thing that all the staff, and I think if you look at it where you work, you'd hate to have somebody come and tell you how to run something when they have no background into it. And I think that's why, as trustees, we set our policies, we hire the people that are the right person for the right job, and let them run it, no matter if it's water billing or police department or whatever. And I think that's just something that I think there's too many people that would like to run everything, and I don't think anybody's got the background to do that, and that's why we need a strong administrator to take out the board's policies and move them forward. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Broszka.
I believe the village needs a village administrator to oversee all the different department heads within the village. I don't think we need to overpay an administrator, as we have in the past, but I do think one is needed, as in regular business, because the department head should be ultimately responsible for their department, hiring, firing, making day-to-day decisions, but somebody needs to oversee that, and that's my feeling towards it.
Thank you, Mr. Broszka. Mr. Salisbury.
Well, I think I said it before. The hiring of a village administrator, you really have to be careful of the kind of you really have to go out there and look for the right person for the job. And I still feel if we find that right person and they're qualified, yes, let them oversee day-to-day operations, but they are responsible still reporting to the trustees, and the trustees should have a hand in what the department heads are doing. After all, we're the ones that are elected by the residents.
Ms. Nedrow?
I find it fascinating. I'm the only female here, and yet I'm the one who says we don't need one. I wonder if it's because we seem to run our households so well. I don't feel that we need a village administrator. I think the term micromanagement went out in the 90s. I think that we should be responsible for what's going on in the village. I think we should know all of our departments. If we're going to be up here making decisions for the village, shouldn't we know each of the individual departments that we're making these decisions for? I might not know anything about the police department, but you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to go and figure it all out, especially if I'm sitting up there on the board making decisions for the city in regards to that. So no, I do not feel that we need a village administrator.
Thank you, Ms. Nedrow.
I get to go now.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Just actually trying to analyze it every time I say your name, because I think everyone can hear me okay. I'm doing the lean thing because nothing's tall enough up here. So
I got it.
I'm winging it this way. So, yes, Mr. Nelson.
Okay.
Please.
I kind of concur with Ms. Nedrow. We don't need any administrator. We have really good, solid department heads. And if we don't, we get some. I own 3 businesses, and if I didn't have good department heads, I'd be out of business. We don't need an administrator to administer policy because the policy's already been written. Our department heads should know that policy. And if they don't, like I said, get a new department head. We don't need that $150,000 expense. We wasted, for 10 years, $150,000 a year. That person built a giant building that we really didn't need. We overspent, and we're all going to pay for it for 30 years, people. We didn't need to have an extra over budget of $6 million for this building. We didn't need that. We need responsible people doing responsible things. We hire good, solid people to run the departments, and they do a good job. Let them do it. They know the policy. We don't need to sit there and, micromanage. And even though I agree with you, that went out in the 90s, it really does fit. We're not going to micromanage, but we're going to make sure you do the policy. That's our job. We're the trustees. We're the ones you put the trust in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Okay, our third question. What steps will you take to attract businesses to Montgomery in order to bring new jobs to the community?
Mr. Lee.
What was the question again? Oh, sorry.
Who does your hair?
What steps will you take to attract businesses to Montgomery in order to bring new jobs to the community?
Okay. I think first we have to work with our economic developer. We have started this 10 years ago, economic development. We're the last town that really has one yet. And when some of these businesses, and I don't know any businesses, a lot of businesses that have left, like somebody mentioned, but these businesses have all kicked in, a lot of them have kicked in $5,000 a year, so they have $50,000 invested in the economic development, and they're the ones that bring other people to the table. Inland was a member of ours in the beginning. Now we've got Sam's Club coming in. We already have other places around there. I'm sure that restaurants are going to jump on. They always do when a Sam's moves in. And I think the other thing is the people on retention of our businesses. We have Gusto Packing, who had a 40% increase in the spring, and they have went from like 200 and some employees and now have over 500 employees. They sold out to Butterball, and yet they sent a $5,000 check already this year to the economic development. We have to work with the economic development people and bring more businesses, whether it's commercial, industrial, especially the retention of businesses. Fox River Foods is another one that just sold out, but they also have 500 employees. So I think we're happy with the bigger ones that have stayed here. Like I say, I don't know a lot of them that have moved out, but in these tough economic times, I think we've done a good job in the last few years.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Broszka.
I think as a trustee, we need to work closely with the MEDC and also along with the residents, because the residents are 18,000 plus and should be able to promote the village just as well as the MEDC. In addition, we could probably encourage current businesses to grow within the village.
Thank you, Mr. Broszka. Mr. Salisbury.
I think what we need to do we need to work with our current business owners and do whatever we can do with our residents and the businesses that want to come into Montgomery to make Montgomery desirable to them, but without giving a huge economic tax break, because that puts more tax on our residents. So I think the closer we work with our businesses and the new ones and our current ones, I think we could see substantial growth in the future. But it's up to us to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Salisbury. Ms. Nedrow?
As a business owner myself, I think it's important for us to make sure that we are attracting the smaller businesses. I think it's great that we have Sam's Clubs coming into Montgomery. I know that's going to bring a lot of jobs and a lot of revenue. However, it's the small businesses that really bring more people to the downtown area. You look at downtown Oswego, and they've got all their little cute little shops that they go to, and they do their downtown things. I can really see a lot more of the downtown area having little niche-type stores that would bring a lot more business and revenue to the city and a lot more visitors, which can only grow Montgomery further. I would love to open up a standing studio. I currently come to people's houses to do photos. And I would love to have an opening studio, but I don't feel that right now downtown Montgomery is the place for me to open it. And I think some work could be done to the structures that are here to entice other businesses to come.
Thank you, Ms. Nedrow. Mr. Nelson.
Oh, you got it.
Got it.
Well, I too own businesses, and the problem that we have currently is Illinois. It's broken, pure and simple. That's why I'm not incorporated in Illinois. The problem that we face here in Montgomery is we don't have a downtown. We have out there, we got out there. We don't have a downtown. So economic development is really difficult because we're a long patch. I think what we need to do is, as a village, we need to do like we did 15 years ago, 10 years ago. We need to get the word out. Buy Montgomery. We got businesses here. If we buy our stuff here, our taxes stay here. It's real simple. Buy as much as you can here in Montgomery. And granted, we don't have an auto dealership here, but we may eventually. But if we buy here in Montgomery, that's only going to do one thing: increase taxes, increase loyalty, and the businesses are going to talk, and that's how businesses grow. No other way. They grow by sales. And if we're not going to support our local businesses, you're just taking out a gun, people, and going click right in your head. Because that's what happens with the taxes. We have to buy Montgomery. And if we're going to spend money, let's spend it on a big, huge promotion saying, buy Montgomery. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Youngerman.
I agree with what Greg said. We have to buy Montgomery. But right now, we're in a situation where there's not a whole lot in Montgomery to buy. The current village board took a consensus vote, I believe it was a week or two ago. The MEDC director went before the village board and asked for an additional $20,000 in funding to cover some costs. And the consensus vote was to not increase her budget. I think that we need to work closely with the MEDC. We need to increase their budget. That way we can do whatever we can to help the MEDC bring economic development into the village. We talk about buying Montgomery. We have to get the economic development in Montgomery to spend our tax dollars in Montgomery. You only have to go to patch.com to see that the adjacent surrounding communities don't think very highly of Montgomery. Oswego wanted the Sam's location to go to the old Lowe's location. They were very upset when they found out that it was coming to Montgomery. And if we can't put ourselves in a position where we're able to take advantage of those economic opportunities that become available, I guarantee you the surrounding communities will.
Thank you, Mr. Youngerman.
Our next question is, how will you make yourselves available to residents to discuss major policy issues and address their concerns? And I believe Ben should be the first one answering this one.
That is correct.
In order to make myself available to the residents of Montgomery, I pretty much have an open door policy where I have a Facebook page and a Twitter page, and any resident at any time could ask questions and get answers.
Thank you, Mr. Broszka. Mr. Salisbury.
Well, like Ben said, I have an open door policy. I would hand out business cards to the residents. I have a cell phone they can contact 24 hours a day. There's all kinds of social media out there: Facebook, Twitter, email. Any resident that wants to talk to me at any time is welcome to do so. I will meet them anywhere at any time.
Thank you. Ms. Nedrow.
pretty much what the first two have said. I have email, I have cell phone, I have Facebook. Having my own business, my cell phone is constantly ringing. I've already felt it vibrate 5 or 6 times since I've been sitting here. So it's easy to get in touch with me. Stan Bond was fabulous when I had an issue with my stop sign. I was able to contact him 24/7, and the same thing. I had his email, I had his phone number. Facebook, we were able to get the conversation going and get to me to what I needed to do to get my stop sign. So I would do the same for any villager.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.
Well, considering I'm probably the biggest geek on the table here, yeah, you can get a hold of me any way you want to. But I think we need to go a little bit further. I mean, those are just basic things. Currently, we don't have a really good internal structure to move things through. I'd like to see where the website here logs it, and then the person responds, and see that it goes from point A to point Z to point Q, or whatever, and log that, because that detail is not being collected. Because if you're having a problem, you might have the same problem. And so now we're doing it 12 times. We need to collect the information. We need to distill it. We need to get back to the department heads so that they can react positively and with thought. Because if I'm getting if they're calling me, I'm going to hand it over to whoever, and then they're going to do something with it. But I want the report back. And I want all the trustees to have that report back, because I want to see that we're departmentally doing our job. We pay them. Let's make sure that they're doing the job. Trustees are only going to take the call, probably. They're not going to fix it. But that public works guy is going to fix it. And I want to know that he fixed it, and he fixed it to his best ability and to your satisfaction. Right now, we don't do that. Or we do a piss-poor job of it. And it's time that we stop that. We need to make sure that when I answer the phone call, it goes someplace, and we got results. In a nutshell.
Thank you. Mr. Lake.
Well, as you can see...
No, I'm sorry.
Oh?
I messed up. Attorney, Mr. Youngerman's next. I'm sorry.
I'm confused now.
I'm
What was the
sorry.
question?
How will you make yourselves available to residents to discuss major policy issues and address their concerns?
I have all of the same things that everybody else has. I have Facebook. I have a Facebook page. We have a community watch page. People can call me at home. I've met with people at their personal homes about issues. I also think that when you come before the village board right now, you currently have 2 minutes to speak. I want to see that raised to 4 or 5 minutes. I know a lot of people can't necessarily speak for 4 or 5 minutes, but we're going to give them the opportunity. I know when the LED billboard sign issue came up, by the way, which I do not support, there were a lot of people that had a lot of opinions, and sometimes 2 minutes was not long enough. But I think the people who know me and the people who have worked with me via Community Watch know that I will go above and beyond to make sure that I'm available to answer anyone's questions.
Thank you. Mr. Lake.
Okay, as you can see, there's some difference of opinions on, I guess, communication, shall we say. Definitely, I've always had my phone listed. I have a cell phone. I'm around the area a lot, especially in the summer, and I walk the neighborhood sometimes. I think a lot of it is and I just did this Saturday, called Dan on an issue that a resident called me on. It's fine that Dan gets back to me and says whatever happened, but as long as he got a hold of that person, I don't think all the trustees have to know what happened. I don't care if I call Gary on a pothole or if Matt Browley calls Gary on a pothole. I don't have to know if some pothole was filled, for Ron and Dolores in front of their house or something. It doesn't make a difference to me as long as it gets done. I don't think communication in the last 12 years has been a problem. Everybody seems to get a hold of me. I'm not like Josh. I'm not going to be there 24 hours. Sorry, I'm an old man. I go to bed at 10. But I do get up at 6, so you can start calling me then. Other than that, anytime, everybody always seems to get a hold of me. So thank you.
Thank you.
This question, Josh, you will start. Briefly explain your stance on the role of the Greater Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce and the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation within the community.
Can you repeat that one more time for me?
Briefly explain your stance on the role of the Greater Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce and the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation within the community.
Okay, well, I think that the Chamber and the MEDC are trying to do the best job they can bringing the businesses to Montgomery, but I still feel that it's our responsibility as trustees to make Montgomery as marketable as we can and to try to, I don't know how I want to word this. Over the last couple of years with the MEDC, I've noticed they have been trying to get involved in more of the governmental operations of the village to try to get more funding or what have you, and they are a separate organization. And I applaud the work that they do. But again, as trustees, that I feel we should be more marketable to the businesses, and with the MEDC, we do need to work with them, but I don't feel they need to be as closely involved as I think they are at this point with our village government. But I do applaud the work that they do, and they should continue to do so to bring businesses to the village.
Thank you. Ms. Nadro.
I believe that they're only doing what they're capable of doing with the limited resources they've been given. Businesses aren't going to come to the Chambers of Commerce if they don't have enough resources to show what they can offer. I believe that they are working as hard as they possibly can, but again, we're not giving them the support that they need necessary to grow our businesses in the area. And if we could give them a little more support, perhaps we could be a little more profitable in the Montgomery Village.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.
Well, I remember when the GMAC was, my wife and I started it. We were one of the first people, along with Denny and 4 or 5 other people, a long time ago. And it grew. And it kept on growing. And it's because the businesses grew it. And the Economic Development Committee does a great job. But we need to get it tighter. We need, so the right and the left and that other hand called the village knows what's going on. There's a disjoint somewhere. And until that is homogeneous, we're spinning wheels. And that's probably some reason why they said, no, I can't get behind 20 grand. You need business people to do business things. That's it in a nutshell. So let's get the business community behind things. Let's get some more thought behind it. Let's get our trustees involved a little bit. Sit you all down in a room. Let's bang out some information. Let's work together. Because right now, it's disjointed. I don't think there's a real flow to it. And until you get that flow, till that rhythm's there, we're spinning our wheels. And yeah, we get some wins, but we need to get more wins. And until that happens, we got to really look at it. So I would probably say, let's look at it. Let's do a better job. That's it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Mr. Youngerman.
What was the question?
Lisa, can you please repeat the question?
Briefly explain your stance on the role of the Greater Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce and the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation within the village.
The roles of the MEDC and the Area Chamber of Commerce are to bring development opportunities to the village, be ambassadors for the village, and shed the village in a positive light with other business entities. We need to increase funding for the MEDC. We need to create more economic opportunities. And the way to do that is through increased funding and working closely with the MEDC and the Area Chamber of Commerce. When I toured the VVF facility a couple years ago, I specifically asked, what can we do as a village to help you? And they said, bring in more manufacturing. And they wanted more manufacturing because they could bounce ideas off each other. They could see how they did things, and then they could learn from that. And the way to do that is we have to have a good MEDC director. We have to have good representation with the Chamber of Commerce. And we have to have an active MEDC and an active Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. Mr. Lake.
Greg's right, the chamber started out many years ago in Alice Sutcliffe's back room of a tavern. But I'll tell you, she did a great job, bless her heart. Yeah. Went to, over 100 members. We had a treasurer secretary that I had to keep convincing to come back, who's sitting here. But she did a great job too, and I think at that time, all the business community, and that's what the chamber is kind of an extension of the community. People were very hand-to-hand items at the Christmas tree opening and things like that, and I think that I would like to see a little more Montgomery residents or Montgomery businesses involved in the leadership. As far as the MEDC goes, and by the way, the chamber, if nobody knows, has an office here in the village, which we worked out to save them money so they could put more money toward other things. So the village has worked with the chamber. The MEDC, we could not hire somebody in economic development for $55,000 a year. It's that simple. Oswego just hired one inside, and it's been their second one in, 2 years, 3 years. So that's not working well. They paid $94,000 for him. He's a planner out of Lake Zurich. This is what different directions that different villages go. We have kept the MEDC. The members have increased this year again. And I know our economic director gets calls from Hunley and all over the place asking, how did you guys survive when the rest of them didn't? So I think we have to keep that going, there's no doubt, and fund it more, like Steve said. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Broszka.
Well, I appreciate that the Chamber of Commerce and the MEDC is doing a good job working together to promote the village in a positive light. I'm not opposed to assisting in the funding, but if the village is going to do that, I believe we need to see some results. I think they could probably do a better job using social media. I know the MEDC has a Facebook page. I do not see them promoting the village a whole lot on the page, but they do update things that are going on. I did not find a Facebook page for the Chamber of Commerce, and that's pretty much my stance.
Thank you.
What do you think the greatest accomplishments have been in the Montgomery Village over the past 4 to 5 years?
Ms. Nedrow?
I didn't realize I'd be first for this one. I'd probably say one of the greatest things that I've seen since coming to Montgomery, since I started dating my husband back in the 90s, is watching the Montgomery Fest. I have to say, it's one of the best things. It always falls on our anniversary weekend. So I usually like to glare at him and like, are you taking the kids? And he looks at me, are you taking the kids? But I think it's something that has really expanded and is wonderful. It's a great perk for all of the villagers, and it's something that we should be proud of. We work really hard for.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
You just saw me shake Denny's hand. Denny's worked tirelessly on the fest, and I know because I did it for a couple of years with him, and we brought back rides, we brought back we did all kinds of crazy things. Dan remembers. We went from walking to running overnight. So it's just kept on growing. That is a highlight. I mean, we do an excellent fest. And in fact, Oswego hates us, I think, sometimes, because we do an excellent job. And we do it in such a small area. But the past 4 or 5 years, we haven't had a real wellspring of things happening in the village that have been super positive. Some of them have been some businesses opening, retail, along the strip there, Orchard Road, growing and getting paved was actually a nice thing, and maybe we'll see some more growth that'll happen out of that. A lot of the things that have happened have been incremental, and incremental things are hard to see. The one thing I can tell you, in the past 5 years, we're above the watermark. We're not underwater. I'd like it to be down here, though, I think we've got, we've managed to stay above the flood, if you will. We have more things to do, yeah. And it's not going to be one person or a bunch of trustees doing it. It's going to be everybody involved. So, only thing I can tell you is, let's keep on trying.
Thank you.
I'm always confused after his answers, so could you repeat the question, please?
What do you think the greatest accomplishments have been in Montgomery over the past 4 to 5 years?
I'd have to say the number one thing is that we've managed to maintain a balanced budget, and I give a lot of that recognition and support to our finance director, Jeff Zofel. Second, we have an outstanding police department. I think their level of service has been, like I said, outstanding. I think all the officers deeply care about the village. Same with Public Works. I think our Public Works director has been outstanding. I know our guys work their butts off, especially during the recent snows. And they're all trying to get things done with equipment that probably should have been replaced 2 or 3 years ago. But they've had to make some budget cuts, and they've had to make some hard decisions. But I would have to say it's balanced budget, the level of services for police department, and the level of services for Public Works.
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
I think the last few years, we kind of controlled the growth. We do have Sam's coming in, so that's a startup. We did get some of the nice restaurants, a couple out there. I think the biggest accomplishment we had is what you're sitting in, and the police station. Our police station, when we put it in, was the best around. I mean, many times you get small towns saying, we would like a police station like Aurora's. Well, this is a case where Aurora used the same engineer we used out of Phoenix and said, we want a police station like Montgomery, only bigger. And it really meant a lot to us when we had our open houses. The other chiefs, and I think our chief now can tell you that, they came in, I still remember the Batavia guy saying, I'd love to have this job instead of mine because you just got a great police station here. It's just amazing, all the different features it has in it. The village hall here, same way. This will last 50 years, and our bonds are a 20-year bond on it, I think it was, and was paid a third by the developers. In other words, the developer, every time they put a house, they gave us a couple thousand, it went to here. So a third of this building is paid for by the developers. It was not out of taxpayer money. It wasn't $6 million over budget either, by the way. I mean, the rumors still go, and I've heard as much as police station being $15 million. I think you can talk to one of our trustees right now said that, and I think you can ask our chief. It wasn't even close to that. This was only an $8 million building. I know you say just, but this was an $8 million building, and then your inner structure with the roads, the ComEd, the plumbing, everything added up to the $12 million.
Thank you. Mr. Broszka.
I believe some of our greatest accomplishments, or actually our greatest accomplishment, would to maintain and create small businesses within the village while going through the times we've been going through. In addition, as Steve said, our level of service for police and public works is probably better than any other village we have around us. So I'd like to commend them on their good work there. I'm also not too interested in the past. I'm more interested in the future. I'd like to see Montgomery develop even more.
Thank you. And Mr. Salisbury.
Thank you. Well, to echo what Ben said, we've come a long way in the last 5 or 10 years, but Montgomery still has a long way to go, and our population is getting bigger with the new subdivision out west, and we still do have a long way to go in terms of where Montgomery needs to be for the future, and I think we need to really examine our comprehensive plan that the trustees are working on as we speak, to examine that and see where Montgomery is going in the future. Because the community has a bright future, but we just have to be sure to maintain fiscal responsibility and make sure we can achieve that. And I applaud our finance director, Mr. Zofel. We have maintained a balanced budget despite our economic times, and that's a really hard thing to pull off. And our quality of services for the police and public works have not wavered, so good job on their part as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we got through the first set of questions. We're going to go into, we're still doing well on time, so I'm going to ask some more. The next question is, what do you think the role of the village board is in terms of the day-to-day operations of the village government? I know some of you have touched on it. We want to hear it from all of you. And we're back with Mr. Nelson.
At the top of the list. Well, elected officials are here to make sure that, we put good implementations that can be done. Rules, regulations, whatever it is, they have to be maintained. We come up with the ideas. They brought in from mostly, other municipalities and our residents. Some of the things that we've got on the books, probably should be not on the books any longer. I think what we need to really look at is a trustee is voted in, and the word trust is in there. And they're here to make sure that our staff that we've hired are doing the job properly. And the issue that I've seen over the course of 20-some years, we've gotten rid of some people. We've gotten rid of a village manager. We've gotten rid of 2 of them, in fact. And the reason why is they were doing a poor job. I think our staff, Dan, Public Works staff here in the hall, doing an incredible job. We just need to give them the latitude to be able to do it. Let's connect with them a little bit more and let them move forward with it. I think really just a trustee is taking your trust and moving it into action, and the action is in the departments. So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Youngerman.
I actually wrote the question down this time, so I didn't have that problem. The role of the village board in the day-to-day activities of the village, it's simple. They don't have a role in the day-to-day activities of the village. They are citizens just like everybody else. The only power that a village trustee has is sitting in the chairs behind me, and that's collectively as a whole. I have heard in the past, I know of instances where trustees are trying to somehow push themselves into, they're asking the police department, well, who's funding this click it or ticket, or who's doing these issues? Village trustees, they're there to set policy. The village manager is there to manage the daily activities of the village and the staff, and the village manager is also there to carry out the wishes and the policies and the directives of the village board.
Well, I've said it many times, and I think I'll say it again, is that the trustees are there for policy only. To turn around and do the micromanaging, I know some people don't like that word, but that's about what it is. When we had a trustee last year from out west call and say that they didn't think their road in front of their house was done good enough, come on back and do it. And our driver left it and went back and redid his road for him. That's a little overboard. That's called micromanaging, or you can call it guts or anything else, I guess. But we have way too much of that, and the last year, 2 years, it's been getting worse and worse. And it's time that we set policies, put good people like Dan as police chief, and let him run the department.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Brochka.
Thank you. I think the role of the village board is to maintain the village's ordinances and policies and to vote on the many issues that come before them.
Thank you. Mr. Salisbury.
Well, I think I've said this a couple different times. As far as the role of the trustee in the day-to-day operations, yes, the trustee is responsible for some of the day-to-day operations. Yes, we have a staff that carries those out, but the trustee needs to be involved in a lot of those day-to-day operations, because who do the people come to when they have a question? A lot of times they'll call the trustee, and the trustee is responsible for finding out that information. And the only way to do that is if we're involved with the department heads and the various departments. So if you come to me with a question, I can go to that department head and say, well, okay, why isn't this being done? And I can get you that answer. And I don't think it's considered micromanaging to be involved, because the people are the ones that elect us, and they're the ones that we're here to serve.
Thank you. Ms. Nasdro.
I agree with most of what my fellow candidates have said, but I also think our number one role is to be here for our residents. If we're not there for you guys, then what's the point of our role being here at all? If I had a very serious issue that I felt in my own subdivision, and I went to a trustee, and he was able to help me rectify that situation. And I felt that that's the most important thing, is being heard. He listened to me, he gave me advice, and I want to be able to do that for the rest of my residents in the village.
Thank you.
Our next question, briefly explain how you'll be able to balance your work, family, and trustee obligations. And Mr. Youngerman, you start.
Wow. My work, family, and trustee obligations. Right now, I have a very good understanding of my work, trustee, or work plan commission and family obligations. Right now, I have a wife. We don't have children. At some point, we will begin to have children, but that currently right now, no. The Village Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals, I'm familiar with the meetings. I'm familiar with the time constraints and the time issues and scheduling with the meetings. I'm used to that. Work, I actually work in Oswego, so I work for a local business. I work out of that office, so I'm usually in the village daily. I don't see an issue. My wife has realized that this is something that I'm going to be doing, and this is something that we've accepted, and we deal with it, and we find our time when we need to.
Thank you. Mr. Lake.
The last 12 years, I've always found time for the village. I love Montgomery. I've lived here my whole life. And being retired, again, like Josh, it's 24 hours. I go to bed early, but I drive a school bus for special need kids, which I really love. I think it's, but I do have a couple hours after that, and I have a couple hours in the afternoon before I get home at 4 o'clock. But I've been to the MEDC, at 4. I've been in there at 9. I've been at Village Hall. I answer calls and return calls. So I don't think there's any problem with, time element-wise of what I've done. I think a lot of it is what a trustee wants to do. I spend 40 hours Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Montgomery Fest. It was 40 hours for that weekend. I've done it before. I know what it takes, and I've done it. Other trustees come for an hour, and that's it. And that's fine if that's all they want to do. But, and I did compliment Ben earlier tonight. He has been coming to some meetings. But there's other trustees that I know that have only been in this place once, and yet they're running for trustee. So it depends on the time you want to put in, and then it depends on what time you really do put in. And that becomes your availability, not a Facebook or whatever. It's how everybody here sees the trustee in community events and get to be able to talk to them at that time.
Thank you. Mr. Broszka.
Well, I believe I'm pretty good at time management, and I have great support of my family. Speaking of my family, my children are grown, so I really don't have a whole lot of obligation in the evenings any longer. I do have a full-time job, which some people would consider a part-time job at 37.5 hours a week. But I am totally dedicated to serving the village, and I would do that at all expenses.
Thank you. Mr. Salzberg.
Time constraints aren't a problem for me. I'm a single guy. I have a lot of free time. My mom sometimes thinks I have too much free time, but I would make the village of Montgomery my #1 priority because I want to serve my residents.
Thank you. Ms. Nastro.
I have 4 children. I have a fabulous husband. I run my own business. And while we've been sitting here, I've already made my grocery list. I've listened to all the candidates. I've planned all the appointments I have to fill up tomorrow. I think I can manage my time pretty good. I'm not worried about it.
She's a mom.
And Mr. Nelson.
I'm not a mom. Well, I have 3 businesses. I have to manage a lot of things, but I'm also semi-retired because of having 3 businesses. So I have a lot of extra time. I work out of my home, so I can do whatever needs to be done. My wife and I, we've been involved in the village for forever and ever, and run the fest with Denny. We've done all kinds of things. And I think, if it's worth doing, you find the time. Just in a nutshell. That's it.
Thank you.
Our next question, which village committee would you like to serve on? And this one starts with Mr. Lee.
Village committee?
No, we didn't have committees anymore.
Yeah, we really don't have committees anymore. Every trustee is involved. I guess we had somewhat, we combined in the committee of the whole. Some of the committees in the beginning were in the morning or at noon, and I think that's how I got on a couple of them for the intergovernmental and some of that we combined them into committee of the whole meetings so that the people can come ask questions. Probably involvement, I probably have been involved more in the business community. I knew a lot of the business owners before I became a trustee, and I've just got to know more business people through different avenues. But committee-wise, there really isn't any committee, and I think that's one thing we have kind of taken it away. In the old days, we had one in Public Works, and he would go around and tell everybody what pothole to fill, and somebody else would be finance, and he'd tell you what's the best available, put your money in what bank. But now we hire all that done. We have professionals, and they handle the situation and pass it down through the help through channels. So committee-wise, I don't know if that's really a real good question, but I guess that's my answer.
Thank you. Mr. Broszka.
I believe the question is, what committee would I like to serve on? I think all of them. As a trustee, I think we should all, if we can't serve on a committee, we should at least attend meetings. And in addition, I think all of the committees should work together to promote Montgomery.
Thank you. Mr. Salisbury.
Well, in regards to what committee I want to serve on, anything you assign me, or the village assigns me, or the village president assigns me, I will give 110% and more to that committee.
Thank you. Ms. Nesdro.
Okay, I'm a girl. I want to be on the beautification committee. I want to play with all that stuff. I want to make things fabulous. I love hearing all the updates from Stan about what's going on, so come on. I want to go make things pretty.
Mr. Nelson.
Oh, my gosh. Denny kind of brought it is, yeah, there's no longer committees. I mean, it's homogenous. But I think really what it comes down to is expertise. I know Denny brings his expertise in business and other things to the pot. And for myself, background in computer technology, accounting, business, bring that to the table. I think, we got away from the collective committee for each person. And I think that needs to come back, sort of. I think we need to have a trustee to where that trustee can report on what's really going on in that department. I know we have the departments give their little details. Dan comes and does his thing, and each department gives their stuff. But it would be nice that maybe we had two people meet with Dan as trustees once in a while, and each two trustees go meet with, we only got really 3 departments. So why don't we just take 2 trustees and each of us meet with those guys and get a real understanding of what's going on? Because I think it'll streamline some of the things that come to the board, so that now we got 2 people who can articulate, and maybe something gets missed when Dan talks. I think we need to bring back a little bit of that. I'm not saying we want to micromanage it, and I want to make sure those potholes get filled, but I'd like to be involved a little bit more. Thank you.
Mr. Youngerman.
I'd have to say either the intergovernmental committee, or I have a background in construction project management. I'm used to dealing with contracts and budgets, possibly the finance committee, or hey, can we found a common sense committee? Let's do that. I guess the intergovernmental or the finance.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do one last question before we do the closing statements. This one I'm sure you've all thought about. Why should the residents vote for you to be a village trustee?
Mr. Broszka.
Well, I'm planning on going first. Why would you vote for me? Because I'm honest, I'm thorough. I believe that we should analyze things before voting on them. And I'm available to listen to your questions and assist you in any way possible.
Thank you. Mr. Salisbury.
Tough question, but given it some thought, and why would you vote for me? I'm a dependable, hardworking person. I will give 110% and more to the village. I want to work for my residents, and I want to maintain fiscal responsibility so the residents aren't overtaxed, and we're not paying all these high taxes that we're getting into now, and just bring Montgomery to the next level, the level for the future, a higher level than where we were. We're getting there, but we're not all the way there yet, and I hope to be a part of it.
Thank you. Ms. Nesdro.
Why wouldn't you? I am honest and straightforward, and I'm not afraid to speak my mind and let you know where we should be. And if you come to me and say, we're concerned about this, I'll say, okay, lay it all out for me. Tell me where you're coming from. Why is this important? And then I will bring it up.
and I will support you 100%. I never give up a fight.
Mr. Nelson.
Well, I'm pretty much, what you got. You see what you see, and this is me. I'm going to tell you the good news, but I'm also going to tell you the bad news. Period. I mean, that's what a trustee is supposed to do. There's going to be good days that we can tell you, hey, we got that contract, or we got that retailer to move in. And then there's going to be days I'm going to say, we got to come up with $10 million to help out Boulder Hill. Yeah, it sucks. It really does. But that's what a trustee is supposed to be. Face value. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I don't have to. I got to do a job, and the job, if I get hired, is by you voting for me. I'm going to give you 110%. No, I'm going to give you 200%. I'm going to give you as much as I possibly can. I have a good background, good, solid business background. I've been successful, actually very successful. I want to give you those talents. God gave them to me. I'll give them to you for free. I want to represent you. I want to save us some money. I want to cut our taxes. I think our levy we don't need to levy up every year. If it's in the budget, we don't need to spend if it's in the budget. Just because it's in the budget, you don't go out and buy a car just because it's in the budget. We've got to be responsible. That's what I am.
Mr. Youngerman.
Because I'll serve the village with honesty and integrity, I'll maintain a balanced budget. I'll create an environment of open and honest dialogue between the residents and the village board. I'll work with the MEDC and the chamber to create as many economic opportunities as we can. I will do whatever I can to keep tax rates low. I support the proposed TIF district, which, by the way, does not cost residents a penny. It doesn't cost the TIF district. It does not cost the residents a penny. It does not cost the village a penny. I have the background from my tenure on the Plan Commission. I know how things work. I'm used to dealing with hard issues. I think I've shown with the LED billboard issue that I will not be painted into a corner. I feel that I am one of the most qualified candidates that's currently running for election.
Thank you. Mr. Lay.
Thank you. The water, too. Well, I feel my last 12 years, I've kind of spoke for my reputation. I think my background reputation speaks for itself. Looking in the audience, I would say there's a few people that I don't know here, but I would say most of the people, I'd say 80% of the people here I know. And I think that speaks volumes right in itself. Some of them may not like me, some of them may not like my ideas, but at least they know who I am and I know who they are. And I think the whole thing is communication. I've had I had one guy at Boulder Hill that was madder than heck at me, and I will not bring a $10 million bill to the village for Boulder Hill. That's never going to happen. But he and I went at it one mayor's breakfast, and after that, I would say the next 8 or 10 times, he comes now just to have donuts and coffee with me. So it's just one of those things that eventually I hope to turn everybody that don't agree with me around. But I think my platform will kind of be understood as how I answered the questions tonight. And I think, like I say, my reputation, I think, speaks for itself as far as anybody wanting to find anything out about me.
We're finished with the questions now, so we're ready to start closing statements. It will be in a different order.
And Mr. Salisbury will be first.
Pull this over here a little bit.
Well, in closing, I want to thank all the residents that came out tonight. It shows really real community support, that you're willing to get involved, and that's what we like to see in the village, is more community involvement. And I guess the only thing I have left to say is it's up to you guys now to go into that voting booth on Election Day and select your trustees.
Thank you. Ms. Nesdro.
I want to thank everyone for coming this evening, because regardless of what anyone else thinks, I know who I am going to vote for and who I am not going to vote for, based on tonight's questions and answers. I believe that I could stand here for hours and tell you how fabulous I am and why you should vote for me, but I think you've already made up your own minds, and that's not something I need to do. I know where I stand on issues, and I know what I believe in, and I just want to thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Lay.
What's next? There's a lot of statements tonight that were kind of taken out of context, vague statements about spending too much, not having a reserve. We do have a reserve, so I want everybody to relax on that. It may not be as big as we'd like to have it, but we do have a reserve fund in case of a disaster. We do have a balanced budget every year, and so therefore the money coming in, and I think if you look at your tax bills, under Village of Montgomery only, I know the rest of them have jumped around, but the Village of Montgomery, say for the last couple of years, we had one of a meet and greet, and a girl came up to me and said, my taxes out on, I think it was Andrew Trail, went down $8 last year under Village of Montgomery. I think you will all find that. It's either gone up or down $8 depending on the value of your house. Some even more down depending on the value. But you're going to have to figure that out, that we haven't done too bad with a balanced budget for the whole year. We haven't got the housing, like if you see in the paper, Yorkville and Oswego, where you have 900 houses laid out, streets are in, and nobody's building. We had controlled growth. There's a few houses over here, and there's a few way out. But it's handful compared to the hundreds. I think North Aurora's got like 900. So it's a case where I think we've done a good job. I think we just should get back to common sense is the main thing.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.
I think what it comes down to is we've got 8 individuals, a couple that aren't here this evening, that you need to look at closely. You need to look at, are they capable of doing the job? It's not an easy job. Denny's done it for years. Stan's done it. Andy, a few of the other people in the audience have done the trustee job for years. Times are changing. We need to have a lot of energy to get the village moving from where we are to where we need to be. The future is out there. We only have so much land in our village to put houses up on, businesses up on. We need to get as much out of that and get as much tax revenue as we can. We need to buy Montgomery. We also need to sell Montgomery to other people. I think as a trustee, that would be, for myself, as a business person, I can articulate that really well to another business person. And business people buy from other business people. That's where they talk. That's it in a nutshell. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Youngerman.
I once heard a quote, and I'm paraphrasing, give a man power, and you will see his true character. And I believe we've seen the true character of a majority of the current trustees and the character of the individuals here this evening. But the character of the current trustees with their agendas, they're not in the best interest of the village. I support the TIF district. I fully support the MEDC. I want the best possible Montgomery that we can have. When my wife and I moved into Montgomery in 2007, we thought that it would be the best place to raise a family, and we still hold that belief. There are certain trustees right now that they want, it's in the paper, and I have all types of articles here. Elected officials want to carry firearms. They want to potentially eliminate the chief of police. By the way, I support you 100%. They want to use motorcycles. We need common sense. We need a return to reason, and that's why I ask for your support, and I ask that you support the other return to reason candidates, Teresa Sperling, Denny Lee, and Matt Brawley for president.
Thank you, Mr. Youngerman. Mr. Borowska.
Well, I'm sure by now you can always figure out that I'm not a politician. I'm a resident. I believe in the village. Montgomery is a wonderful place to raise my family. It's been a good place for all of us, or we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be concerned about who you're going to vote for and who you're not going to vote for. So with that said, in my first bid for public office, I seek your vote and your support, and I thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. That will conclude our evening.
I did?
Lisa?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Hold that thought.
Don't move anybody.
Yeah, don't move. Hold on.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to read a closing statement on behalf of Teresa Sperling, who's also running for trustee. Thank you again to everyone for this opportunity this evening. My name is Teresa Sperling, and I want to be one of the 3 trustees elected in April. My objectives as trustee include maintaining a balanced budget, continuing to provide a high level of resident services, growing the community responsibly, and supporting economic development efforts. I feel the major challenge the village faces is competition for economic development. I think it is very important to support the entities that work not only to attract new enterprise to Montgomery, but also to reach out to the existing businesses. The Community Development Department's Business Boost program and the MEDC's commercial bus tour are excellent examples of such outreach activities. These activities build relationships and help local companies succeed and remain here in our community. Therefore, I fully support the efforts of the professionals of the MEDC, the Chamber, and the Community Development Department. I truly believe the village will thrive and grow with a strong foundation in our local business community. As I've talked with residents, this has been the resounding message. They've expressed their concern and stressed to me their desire to bring in more business, adding, they want a board that works together to keep local companies healthy and also grow the overall business community. I want Montgomery to be ready as the economy starts to improve. The village needs to be proactive at attracting new business by using tools such as the Orchard Road TIF. I'm ready to work with our economic development professionals to make this happen. In short, I have experience working with the village government through my time on the Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals, as well as the TIF Steering Committee. I've fine-tuned my troubleshooting skills through my professional background. I'm a big picture thinker and consider longer-term consequences when making decisions. I believe in doing what's best for our residents. I'll bring thoughtful consideration, open-mindedness, and common sense when making decisions on behalf of the residents. I look forward to the chance to serve my community as a trustee and to shape our future. My name is Teresa Sperling, and I ask for your vote for trustee. Thank you.
That will conclude our evening. Again, on behalf of the Greater Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce, I appreciate all of you taking time out of your evening to come out and to support and to listen and to make an educated, responsible vote as a citizen when the polls are open. And just in closing, I would like to also share our goal with the Greater Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce is to promote partnerships for business success. So as you leave this evening, please be careful on your way home. And again, thank you for coming out.